What's up everyone? Today we're diving into the signature minimal tech sound of Max Dean, an artist who's been making serious waves in the scene with his stripped back groove heavy tunes. One track that perfectly showcases his ability to balance energy with simplicity is Fascinator, the lead track from his recent EP. In this breakdown we'll be going through all the key elements that define his style, from those bouncy call and response bass lines, catchy vocals, crisp drums, and those subtle yet captivating synths. If you want to learn how to create music in this style, stick around and let's get into it. The very first thing we'll talk about is going to be the vocals. The way he's done this is basically just sourcing a bunch of different ad-libs and using call and response to have them come in and out of each other. So the main ad-libs are basically this baby baby and a sample. A big part of this track and his style is the call and response technique. I've talked about this a few times in various tutorials, but it's fairly standard in principle. Basically, what you want is a layer introducing an idea, and then you want another layer finishing that idea. What you can do is you can find different ad-libs and you can have them talk to each other. So this is playing the question. And that's the response. This is kind of the main riff which plays throughout the drop, and throughout the track you've basically got different variations of all those layers. So you've got the baby up here, you've got a section where it just plays the us, you've got both of them. These two layers are basically the main two, I would say. The other ones are mostly just variations. So you've got that let's go, which is like an SFX. Let's go! We've got this phrase, which was the one I couldn't quite find, but if I had to hazard a guess, it's a hip-hop sample from a track somewhere. And the wait a minute one.
Wait a minute, just listen.
I think this might be Boo Records sample pool from memory. I know I'm going to get the question asking where to find these type of ad-libs. I've obviously just mentioned the Boo Records one, but I don't want to be constantly repeating myself, so I will point you over to the where to source vocals tutorial, where I'll give you 16 different places to source vocals like this. So basically he's taking these really nice ad-libs from various sources, he's lining them up so that they speak to each other, and then processing them with reverbs, delays to put them in that space. The next section we'll move on to is basically the low end group. We've got this standard kick. Basically a nice punchy kick sample. I wouldn't be overthinking the sample. You could start with a basic 909. Then we continue that call and response theme with the bass lines. So I'll just play all of them. Essentially what you've got is 3 separate bass layers taking up different spaces in the frequency. You've got this deep layer. This is what plays the question. Then you've got this, which is a more resonant acidy texture. And the final one is this sub bass, which is also playing in response, but it's filling out more of the low end. So we'll start with this first one called Moog Bass Deep. The way I've created this is 2 separate oscillators. So we've used the saw rounded wavetable. We've layered 2 of them 1 octave apart, and we've brought the unison up to give it that fuller sound. We've added some noise just to give some grit to the sound. We've applied this filter where we've basically just cranked the resonance. We've brought the cutoff down. We've mapped it to an envelope, and we're trying to find those sweet spots in terms of tones. So that's the first sound. For this one, you've got this proper Moog style synth lead, which I think I've heard in a few Max Dean tracks before. I think you'd be able to find some pretty decent presets, but for those that want to learn how to create it from scratch, here we go. What we've got here for this layer is pretty much the exact same as the previous one I did, but this first one's been transposed 2 and this one's been transposed 1. Another thing that's making a massive difference is the cutoff's a bit higher and the resonance is much higher, which just creates two very different textures. If I play the same note with the two different patches, this is the first one and this second one, same note. So we've basically used the same foundations but made different tweaks to the octave, to the filter, and to the envelope. Just as a side note, if I'm going too fast or if you want to download these patches, then the project will be available in the description. And the final one is this sub. Basically what this one is a basic shape. We've got that with a bit of noise. What you can do in Serum is you can go in and you can choose these different noise types, which essentially just add a bit of presence higher up in the frequency spectrum. If I play it with and without, that's a very subby sound. If we want to add a bit more presence to it, we can add this noise. If I solo it, it's a very clicky sound. And then I can add these different layers. So we've got that oscillator, we've got that noise, we've layered it with a sub 2 octaves down, we've filtered it massively, and we've also modulated the filter cutoff using an envelope. Altogether, you've got these 3 complementary sounds, and it's basically just a really good example of layering nice sounds together to create depth to a mix. The final thing we'll talk about is obviously that call and response pattern, which I've kind of brushed over. For the pattern, we've essentially got 3 notes. For this E, we've got this G, and then we've got this G2. We're basically doing this octave jump style pattern with this note as a filler. I think the way the synth's been programmed is with a bit of legato and a bit of glide down here. So we can basically create this slide style effect, which works really well. Then what they would have done to build on that is added to that complexity of the pattern. Literally 2 notes. If I would just kind of show you, I'll attempt to jam something. So very simple in terms of patterns, but you can hear how this call and response technique would work really well. And I think if there's one takeaway from that call and response technique, it's not to overthink the patterns, because quite often if you've got all these really nice sounds, sometimes the best ideas are the most simple ones and you can almost let the sounds speak for themselves. What I'd suspect he would have done is he probably would have started with this basic low end group, carving out that foundation in terms of call and response. But if we just quickly revisit the vocals, you've got these 2 babies playing responses and they kind of alternate between the bass. And then you've got this playing part of the question. It just shows how you can take that call and response from extremely basic to more advanced just by adding these additional vocals in this case, or even synth layers. So that is going to conclude the bass, and that is also going to conclude the call and response technique as a whole. The next layers we'll move on to are all these synths, which are essentially playing a more complementary role. The first one we've got is this. I think this is an example of one of those patterns where you're just trying to find something that's filling in the gaps, adding a bit of rhythmic momentum. The majority of the time it will play one note and alternate between other ones. I think a lot of people would probably look at this pattern and think that's incredibly simple and be amazed by how simple some of these patterns are, but I think when you look at some of these tracks, there's very much a balance between complexity and simplicity. For the sound, what we've got here is we've got this squelchy wave. I added an LFO and you'll see it's moving a few of these. It's moving this phase, but then it's also moving the wavetable position, which is what's adding that movement. We've layered that with a basic saw. We then used this bandpass, which is basically sweeping through the low to high mids. So that's the main lead. We've got these synth keys. Speaking of really basic sounds, this is literally just a basic wave. Basically this plucky keyboard inspired sound. If we move on, we've got this lead. This pattern's quite nice. It's almost playing an ARP, alternating between the E and a melodic line up here. If I just mute this, it's more of a melodic line, and then you've just started with this E and you've just got this constant jump between octaves. I think a big part of how that pattern would be created is going to be with the sound. Literally just a saw wave with a bit of unison, detuned, the envelope of the sound looking like that. And the thing that's making a massive difference here is this filter where the resonance has been cranked up and we've got this cutoff moving quite slowly over the course of a bar. It's almost similar to if I was to do this, load an auto filter, move this up and crank the LFO quite slowly. It creates this really nice evolving sound which pairs really well with those kind of melodies. So this pad. Literally just playing the single line, looking between two notes. The sound looks complicated, but very much just repeats what we've done before. Looking for those interesting wavetables, adding unison, shaping the pad with a similar shape like this, and then modulation, delay, reverb, nothing overly complicated there. We've got this loop pad, which is literally just a transition. I think the final one we've got was a work in progress, but I'll play it anyway. Basically, it's this dubby chord stab. I actually reckon you'd probably find a better one inside Diva, so I might give that a try quickly, just to do something live. A few of these could maybe work, but what we've essentially got is just this, which is there or thereabouts. I think the priority with this style of sound is choosing wavetables. They can be ones that are more interesting with a lot of character like these, or they can be the basic ones. The priority with that stab style of sound is obviously going to be the envelope, and then just a lot of delay or echo. So that is essentially going to conclude the synths. With the drums, there isn't too much going on, so I'll just kind of whiz through this. We've got this clap. Basically just a 909, and there's a decent amount going on with processing, but it's essentially just a parallel reverb. So one of the chains is dry, and then the second one is this ambient reverb. You'll see the size and decay are quite large, and we've basically just blended that signal in, minus 12 dB lower than the dry one. So I'll play them both. It kind of gives you a bit more control as opposed to loading a reverb on the whole sound. We've got this snare fill. Basically just these rolling 16th fills. We've got this semi-open hat. We've added a bit of crunch using the overdrive. Got this open hat. Your standard 909, cleaning up the regions that we don't want. We've got this top loop, but it's not really being used in the conventional sense as a top loop. What you can do is you can essentially take a drum loop and you can convert drums to new MIDI track. What it will do is it will attempt to recreate the rhythm, and it will also slice drums up, albeit in a drum rack. But what we've essentially done here is we've sliced using the sampler instead. Which sounds a bit messy, but if I play it in the context of the mix, it plays a bit more of a percussive role. I think these drums, and his drums in general, are normally quite stripped back. There's not really too much I can tell you, other than just nail the basics, and maybe add a few bits of ear candy. I think a lot of the focus, at least with this track, is on that melodic side. So that is basically the drums. The very final layer I'll just talk about is going to be SFX. What we've done here is we've created these two pretty common effect sounds using Serum. The first one is this white noise. It's probably one of the most common effects used in dance music for transitions. I could literally just type in white noise like that. That is pretty much what I was going for this. But if you want to create it from scratch, you also have that option. With Serum, you basically can just go to the noise section, get creative with the different types of noise, and basically play around with the filters, volumes, envelopes, and some effects as well. As you'll see here, this one's literally just on a band pass, sweeping through the high mids. Literally the most simple sound you can get, but effects are always going to be something that's going to elevate your mix. The only other one we've got is this sub oscillator. And the way we've done that is basically just using an analog BD sine wave and modulating the pitch. So we've used this envelope to basically fade the pitch switch down, and it basically creates this pitch drop effect, which is really nice. Alright people, that is going to wrap this one up. By now you should have a solid understanding of how to craft that signature minimal tech sound like Max Dean. For me, this style is all about keeping things simple, nailing your sound selection, and using call and response to create movement between elements. So that is very much where I'd focus my attention if I was attempting to recreate this style. If you found this video helpful, be sure to drop it a like, hit subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. I'll also be leaving some recommended videos that I think you might enjoy next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.